And one of the realizations I had through the coaching was this is the language of leading people effectively and authentically. This is what I've been missing. I don't know how to do this. I've been spoken to a lot about being a leader, what leadership is. We used to use the word empowerment and empowering constantly, but I don't think I ever truly felt empowered, to be honest.
Well, Lisa, it's been over 2 months, I think, since we chatted, right? Yeah, we connected over so much communication, just self-awareness and how to be a great leader. And we have our theater backgrounds in common too. I'm really excited to have you on for this episode and try to cover it all in our time frame. But before we dive in, I would love for you to share a little bit about your background and what brought you from being in the theater and production to you're working in the utilities space, and now you're a leadership coach. And so your career trajectory has grown over the last years, and now you're able to take your experience and all your work experience and help benefit others. So please share where's that journey taken you, and what's your vision for the future?
Yeah, I love the fact you bring up my theatre background. I think it was fairly short-lived, to be fair. I think your theatre background is a lot more advanced and evolved and much more classified as a professional career path that you took than mine was. I went to university and studied drama, theatre and performance studies in London. So I am from the UK. I did study in London. I feel like that's the only place to study if you live in the UK, if you're going to do drama. And as much as I loved my degree in drama, I think I very swiftly realised that I was unlikely to make a huge amount of money very quickly. And when I graduated, I was so desperate to have my financial independence and to, I suppose in some ways, try and grow up a little bit, which is kind of ironic because that would have been when I was 21. And I don't think I really started to grow up until not that long ago. And let's just say that was a couple of decades in the past now. But I wanted to earn some money and came out with a degree, like I think a lot of students do even now, really going, what am I going to do with this then? And decided to take the first job that looked good and sensible and mature and could earn me something. And that happened to be with an energy company that some may or may not know. It's called British Gas. It's owned by Centrica, who are an American conglomerate. So I started my career there, and I distinctly remember saying in my interview, when they questioned me about my choice of degree in drama, I said that it had set me up for the drama of business. Now, I think that probably tells you a lot about me in the first instance. A little bit melodramatic, possibly, but also a little bit of a comedian. And I think that is a constant for me in my approach in life, in all aspects, work and personal, which is that I don't take myself very seriously, that I think humour is such an important value to hold and helps to give perspective and enables us to manage and navigate all sorts of situations. And it definitely helped me in my corporate career. But I would add, I think at times that was possibly where I also didn't particularly feel like I fit in a lot of the time. So I was fortunate to have a really fantastic career in the energy sector. I grew a lot. I did a lot of learning quickly. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to really stretch myself, grow, push myself out of my comfort zones many times. However, it did reach a point in my middle management senior career where I think that stretching of the comfort zones probably tipped over into being what was incredibly uncomfortable and very difficult and very challenging to manage. And when that took place, so we're talking 2014, I didn't have the right support structure around me, I don't think, to properly handle and navigate it well. And so I am quite a self-deprecating character. I have an ego, but it's incredibly mean. And I think I went very internal to explore what was going on and took full responsibility for it. which almost translated in me quitting and leaving that particular job because I didn't really know what else to do. It felt like the only way out. I managed to put a glass ceiling above me. I think at the time that was a terminology that was being used a lot about the glass ceiling, especially in relation to women in our careers, that we have a ceiling that we reach. But I actually put that in place all on my own. No one else really did that. I just had managed to convince myself that actually I'm not a very good leader. I'm not good at managing people. I don't know how I got this job. Why would anyone want to be led by me? I can't develop people. I don't have anything to offer, etc., etc. And this kind of snowballed to the point where I was feeling incredibly anxious, couldn't sleep at night. As I said, thought I was going to quit. And it was only when I think my dad said to me, have you thought about getting a coach, that I decided to do something different. But I have to admit, my first reaction to that statement was, what are you talking about? One, I was very proud, and I think there was an element of shame about asking for help. Internally in the organisation, definitely, but absolutely externally to strangers. So I remember thinking at the time, I don't need anyone's help who doesn't know me, doesn't understand me. And that was quite key for me. It was about me putting myself in control of the situation and trying to, I think, connect myself to what I was capable of doing, and that included resolving the problem. And I actually found the coaching, and it's so cliche to say this because coaches use this word all the time, but it was transformational. I can't think of another word to use. And one of the realizations I had through the coaching was, this is the language of leading people effectively and authentically. This is what I've been missing. I don't know how to do this. I've been spoken to a lot about being a leader, what leadership is. We used to use the word empowerment and empowering constantly, but I don't think I ever truly felt empowered, to be honest. I think that at that moment in time, people had often said to me, I'm going to empower you by giving you this or telling you this. And I'd be like, that doesn't feel particularly motivational, for good reason, because that's not empowering people. And so I decided actually I was going to train to be a coach for myself. I felt it would give me something. It would help me to learn more about myself. It would strengthen how I felt about myself, while at the same time having this incredible skill that I could utilise to really lead people, like truly, like honestly, and at being able to add value back to people. And it was through learning how to coach, training to be a coach, that I really managed to accelerate my leadership career after that. Which then led really to thinking I could keep leading teams operationally, whether that be in the energy sector or I actually skipped over into fast moving consumer goods. I worked for a soft drinks company for a few years. But really I thought, when you're coaching as a leader, you're still ultimately being expected to deliver on leadership objectives. You're still being ultimately expected to align and conform with an organisation and its priorities and its values, juggle the same sort of political nonsense that happens in organisations. And I think I just got to the point where I was like, I'd love to just coach and actually train people in leadership skills full time. So let's go for it. Let's do it. So that's kind of as short a version of a long story that I can come up with.
Well, I love it. And I think that everything you've described that helped you build and make that path for yourself was all very valuable and useful in shaping your career. I wouldn't judge or compare anyone's theater experience, because even a small amount of time, that's how long it was, can be a huge impact in helping prepare you for the business world. I think you're absolutely right. I like to think of it as an art and science to business now, and business is as much an art as it is a science, if not more so an art, because there's room for innovation and problem solving. And so I feel like our theater backgrounds and being able to work collaboratively with other people help put us in a position where we can take feedback and we can learn and we can grow.
Yeah.
So many folks find themselves in a management position or looking to be in a management position, and they've either put a cap on their own ability and created these limitations, or other people maybe put limitations on them, and maybe there's no limitation at all, yet they don't know where to start and where to grow from. So I love that your own journey comes from an experience, and then applying that, you're able to connect with other folks on, I would imagine, a deeper level, because you've gone through that journey yourself, and you're able to help them through it and navigate through it in their own way too. So all of that said, Lisa, I think it's really admirable, and the work you're doing is so important. I'm curious, what are some of the top challenges that people are struggling with, or maybe it's a stigma that you're trying to help them sort of banish or navigate around?
I believe that to be a great leader, and this isn't meant to sound as like cliched or naff as it's going to, I'm going to build on it, but I think so much of it begins with ourselves, and it's where I start with all my clients in coaching. It's where I start with all my management training. If you want to be really great at what you're doing, especially when it's about working with other people, when it's about whether that's supporting them, influencing them, communicating with them, and technically that's all part of the job of a leader, actually. You have to do all of that. If you're not able to truly connect and understand yourself and manage yourself first, I don't think you can do that with anybody else. So I think you have to have such strong self-awareness. I think you have to have a really true understanding of yourself. And I don't mean that in solely a positive sense, because we're human and we're flawed. I think it's acknowledging that actually you too can be triggered in a negative way, that you can become angry, frustrated, upset, that you get things wrong, that you make mistakes. And all of what I've just described is totally fine. And it's about accepting it, and then having an understanding of, therefore, when those moments are happening, how to, you yourself, manage through it. Because I think when I work with individuals, and even I would say on a team level as well, because I work with leadership teams, I think often the question in the room is around how to get more results, how to move the business forward, how to do better in our jobs. And people want there to be, I think at times, here's the magic formula, here's just do these things, and it's very process heavy and very externally focused, and then everything will work fine. And I think what I always come back to is, yes, that will come in time. Yes, we can talk about specific skills around communication. We can talk about how to be more strategic in your thinking, how to be more commercially driven, how to get creative and innovative in your organisation, how to have more direct, honest, open conversations with people and lean into conflict. Yeah, we can do all of those things. But if we haven't got the foundation right and actually looked at you and how you're thinking about things, how you're approaching things, then none of that will work. None of it will matter, because we're not building it from a really good place. And I think it's one of those areas of habit that I talk about. Like, I could do a 2-hour training session on focusing on the self, but it's no good if you don't take on board what's happening outside of this room and start building this habit of checking in on yourself, being aware of your language, thinking about your tone and your body language. You have to build those things as habits, and that's where you then get better at it, and you'll start to see the influence it has on other people. So I appreciate that's a very long-winded answer to what could have been construed as quite a straightforward question, but I just don't think it's that simple. But I will say that everything I work on with people really at a base level comes back to that self piece. And I was going to add to that around confidence, because I do a lot of coaching and training on confidence. But really, for me, that's again a bit of a, people come thinking, I don't feel confident, I am not a confident person. But that's fundamentally untrue. And no one who is truly unconfident ever says that. But it takes confidence and bravery and courage to come out and say, I don't feel confident. And so I'm always like, no, you are confident, you're just disconnected from your confidence. So let's get you better connected with it. But even that really is then still about delving deep into the self and identifying, well, what's going on here for you? Because confidence is such a short word for something that's actually quite vast and big.
That, and well, you made a lot of great points there, Lisa. First out, I will say, I love the long-winded answers. I think I'm a long-winded answer question type of person too, because there's a lot of nuance to leadership, and even though we can apply frameworks and methodologies and philosophies to it, you have to experience it, and at the heart of it, we're coaching and we're developing people and we're guiding people, to your point earlier. So you really can't cookie cutter it at all, and I don't believe you should. So all of that said, and this is kind of a long-winded explanation of why long-winded answers. But all of that said, it helps to have that extra context and thought around it. So I appreciate that.
I think it's also about this acceptance as well, that there are, I think, core fundamental areas of leadership that are really key to be aware of and to educate yourselves in, which do show up consistently in examples of great leadership. So they are worth knowing and being aware of. But I think what that then looks like in every single one of us who choose to step into leadership will be different, because we're different, and that's okay. I think as a very, I'm an extroverted character. I think through the course of my immature leadership, my version of good leadership was an extrovert like myself, that it was about being outgoing, loud, confident, direct, clear, assertive. But I'd made leadership into a mould, of a very narrow, small mould that I felt I could fit, that it lent more naturally to my skill set. So that, I suppose I told myself that gave me confidence I could fit in it. But it's fundamentally incorrect. And I think I sort of lent into that, one, because it felt more normal to me and I felt more comfortable with it fundamentally. And anyone who didn't fit that, who made me then question myself, I guess, or who I felt uncomfortable around, but that was my reaction to them, if you like. That was me struggling with their version of leadership, rather than there being anything fundamentally wrong with their version. It was just, it didn't quite correlate with mine, or I actually possibly even found it triggering because it caused me to question myself. But I think as I evolved in my leadership career, and my coaching experience was a massive influence of this, I started to realise, no, actually, leaders come in lots of different forms. And actually, those individuals who are able to apply leadership techniques while very much being themselves and getting that balance right between what is going to be really helpful that they bring to the table that is themselves, and what, possibly to, leave parked or to tone down, that, those are the guys and gals who are doing a wonderful job of this, because they're still being themselves. And actually, it's their differences that are so key. That's what adds the value. And I think I say this to people now, because I think they say to me, oh, teach us to be good leaders, Lisa. And I'm like, okay, I can teach you some skills that are really key for you to be aware of, but don't lose yourself. Like, don't forget how much you bring to your leadership because of who you are and your style of communication and your preference for, and the way you think about things and your approach. That's really important. So that's the bit to, be comfortable with, I think, because I think sometimes people overthink all this stuff. And that's when it goes terribly wrong. I mean, some of my worst management moments have been actually when I feel really uncomfortable. And so I end up not being in my flow state. I'm not relaxed. I'm not in that I can be myself moment. So I do overthink things, and I, question myself, and then I'm hesitant and I'm unclear, and, we undo ourselves, if you like. And so I think that is also why I focus so much on the self, because I'm like, let's get comfortable with you being you, and you being really clear about what you want to bring to your leadership and what you might need to be aware of, and just not get rid of, because we're not about changing ourselves to that extent, but just parking it and going, yeah, I won't bring that today, because that's probably not going to be helpful. And that's why I think it's so important.
What are those fundamental leadership traits and qualities, or soft skills, if you will, that we should be aware of in ourselves and working towards? If you could maybe choose, top 3 or top 5, what would you say are the major ones? I know it's hard, but...
Yeah, look, I think there's always going to be a fine line in any context. I was hesitant to say professional, because I feel like that just boxes it too narrow. Although I appreciate the context of what you and I are talking about and the environments and the people who are listening and people I work with. But like, I just think the first thing for me is about, I think, being really clear in yourself first about what enables you to be at your best. And to get specific, I mean, the environment, the people you're around, the approach they take. So, for example, I know to work with anyone in any context, but I would actually say this is outside of professional. I have to feel listened to. And if you don't listen to me, that is like a red rag to a bull. So I want to feel and know I've been listened to. You don't have to agree with me. That's not what I'm saying. But I want to feel that I've been able to offer what I think. And I think in a work context, you know, we've been employed to do a role based on our experience, on our skill set, our potential, our capability, right? I don't understand then why, when we go into workplaces, that those things are not honoured and cultivated. That doesn't make any sense to me. I remember working with a leader a while ago who, wonderful man, by the way, wonderful man, but he was patronising. And I remember saying to him after a couple of months, this was in my role, by the way, it wasn't immediate, but I do remember saying to him, you have paid me a lot of money to do this job. So on those grounds, surely it would make sense to get your return on investment to support me to share what I think of how to do this and offer my ideas. And to me, that why would a business not want that? That's getting value for their money, right? Why would you invest and employ people if you don't actually support them to do what they're there to do? So that's kind of a thing for me. I think it's been really clear, if you're going to develop, if you want to develop self-awareness, to be really in tune with yourself. What do I need, or how do I operate at my best? What does that consist of? What do I look like on a good day? What do I look like on a bad day? Now, I think this is where it's key that we ask other people for their perspective, right? So we are only going to be able to tell ourselves one version of the truth because it's an internal one. We don't see ourselves. So the perception of what we're doing, we don't have unless we ask for it. So I think it's getting other people to inform this. And our only approach, I would say, keep the circle small, get only like 3 opinions, and make sure they're people you 100% trust and respect. They may not be people that you feel you're fully aligned to or that you even like that much. That's not the same thing. So be careful of just asking your mates. But I think ask people you trust and respect, who you know will give you a different opinion or who could challenge you in a way that you are comfortable challenged in. But this is going to feel uncomfortable for you if you haven't done this before. But I think you have to get somebody else's perspective to inform actually, you know, what you look like on a good day. What are they noticing? You know, do they notice any patterns of your behaviour on certain days in certain situations, for example? And then I would marry those 2 views up to go, right, what do I think? What do they think? Where's the correlation? Have I learned something new? And then I would say sit with a lot of this stuff, because I think you need time to process, time to get comfortable with it. You may not like a lot of it, by the way, but it's highly likely that it's telling you something that's going to be important for you to learn from. So I think they're some of the key things for me. I think it's then thinking about, what do I want to change? Because you don't have to change everything, right? Like, this is the other, like, I remember in some of my like junior management roles, I would get the feedback of, you are very opinionated, which I do think is a term or a phrase that gets thrown out heavily at women. Men don't ever get referred to as opinionated, ever. It's only women that get told they're opinionated.
I've never heard of I can't say in my personal experience, yeah.
No, and it's the same with get emotional. Men don't get emotional. Only women ever get described as being emotional. We could start a whole nother episode about language and genderized language, but there we go, and how to navigate that, because that's an interesting topic. But I think it is about, you know, in that moment, I remember thinking, I like the fact that I share my opinion. Like, I'm grateful that I have one. I feel even more grateful that I feel able to share it. So actually, I think it is sifting through any comments and any thoughts you have to think about, what do I want to keep? What do I like? What do I think actually I would like to change, or I think could be a benefit to me to change? And then I think it's thinking about what one small thing you can do to start changing it. And just start doing that every day and being really aware of it in those situations where you are collaborating and working with other people, you are managing people. Just do one small change and start to see what difference it makes. And ideally, whoever's giving you feedback, or it could be someone else, just make them aware of what you're doing. So you've got, if you like, an accountability partner who can then be noticing what you're doing and offering you ongoing feedback to change it. But I think for me, it is that first step is, do you even know yourself that well at all? Now, I always say this because I feel like I do have an awareness of myself, and it's one that I feel I can readily access. Yes, I think even more so these days, if anything, sometimes too much. I think I get lost in there. As I said before, my ego is not particularly kind, so I can get a bit stuck. But I think for some of us, accessing that internal system, being aware of ourselves, what we think, how we feel, isn't familiar territory. It's not a place we necessarily feel that comfortable with. So I just would encourage people to take a small step, make a small change, get comfortable with that feeling of this feels really uncomfortable, and ensure that actually you have got that support around you to support you through it, to see things you don't see if it is a challenge to access it.
Lisa, that's very practical and helpful advice, and the questions that you outlined. I appreciate you breaking that down for us. When folks are working with you, I imagine there's a degree to which there's the awareness that they need the coaching and they need the help. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming to you. However, when you're working with folks to start, how do you help them in that initial stage? Do you have an approach or something that you like folks to be ready and prepared with when they first work with you?
Yeah, to be fair, I would argue it's a bit of a mixed bag, because I have private clients that approach me, so they seek me out willingly. And they're usually the individuals who have acknowledged that whatever it is, something for them at that time is not as they want it to be. And so there has been a conscious choice to seek out support. So they're already in a very open-minded, I'm investing in myself, I want this, I'm prepared and feel comfortable to at least try something else and challenge myself a little bit. I think where I do a lot of work in organisations, it's not surprising then that you're going to come across individuals who've been supported to have coaching but don't necessarily yet understand what it's about, or even in some circumstances, although these are few, why they're even having it. And it is in those situations more when there is that ensuring that whoever is the sponsor supporting the investment in the coaching for the individual has actually supported that individual to be aware of why that decision's been made. And it's a big part of how I start in those scenarios, is actually engaging with the sponsor, having a three-way conversation with all of us to be clear about what is the coaching, what is it there to achieve, are we all aligned on the outcome that we're striving for, is the individual clear, does the individual have the support outside of the coaching to make these changes? Because I still work with a lot of individuals in organisations where ultimately I can only work with them on what they feel able to change. And if the culture around them is informing that, and that could be also restricting it, that can be a bit of a blocker. I generally, for me, work with every single individual when I'm talking about my coaching in that space of dump it all on the table. Like, tell me what's going on right now. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's contributing to both of those thoughts and feelings? Information are you gathering, processing? And we just dump it all out, to be honest. Because even when people say, as I said like earlier, people will say to me, oh, I'm coming to talk to you about my confidence. But that is the very surface level. I think it's the quickest language we have to access to describe that much bigger piece, if that makes sense. And that's why I'm always like, right, okay, let's start there. Let's see where we get to. But that's always the piece that I break down and get really clear on. Because even if it starts with that umbrella of confidence, even to enable that reconnection, it requires getting to the real nitty gritty. And I have a whole theory around confidence, which is for me that it's fundamentally connected to three things: connectedness, control, and care. And within that care actually is self-belief, and self-belief is the biggest foundation stone, I think, that exists for confidence. But I think when we can then assess those three areas and understand, okay, which one of those is not being fulfilled right now, then we can start looking at, okay, so actually what is the source of the problem? And therefore now we're clearer about how to fix it and what to do differently. But I think, it's that, for me, I tend to just generally start with just dump it all out. Let's dump it all out and then we'll sift through it. So really, from a preparation point of view, there isn't much. I think I generally say if now feels like the right time to do something, if coaching, now that you understand it, feels like the right intervention, the right step, and you feel like you've got the time and you're committed to working on yourself, and let's go. They're the key things.
I love that, Lisa. I think it's great because you're allowing folks to kind of unburden themselves and give it to you to structure. I like to say you can't create in chaos. And so if you are kind of swimming in that chaos of self-doubt and questioning and just uncertainty, being able to unload all of that with someone who can perceive it a little bit differently and give you that expert guidance and coaching and support is incredibly invaluable. So if folks are looking for that, Lisa, where would you like them to go and find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I always say clarity is the absolute, if you like, if you can get the floodgate of clarity open, everything follows. So if a lot of people do come with that burdened feeling like you described so beautifully, and actually that's what's overwhelming, that's what's scary, that's what feels and contributes, that lack of control. That's definitely where I was in 2014. And I think just being able to sift through it, get the clarity, opens up that floodgate of real purposeful, really valuable action that actually resolves it and moves you forwards. So I think if anyone is feeling in that space and you're in that role of a manager or a leader, if that's where you're operating, then by all means come and find me and have a conversation. So I am an active LinkedIner for my sins. It's a bizarre place at times, but I do show up there daily. So you can find me there. So you'll find me if you look for Lisa Robyn with a Y, as it will be described, I'm sure, in the notes for this show. I call myself the middle manager coach. I am very passionate about the middle layer, but I also support junior managers, growing managers, and senior leaders. And if you're finding me under the tagline of being a manager shouldn't be shit, you're in the right place, because that's ultimately what I am passionate to address. I think being a manager should be, as it is, rewarding and fulfilling, and an incredible opportunity for a fulfilling career. Being a manager shouldn't be shit. That's what we'll address. So that's where you'll find me. And if you're an Instagrammer, I do love to be on Instagram. So you'll find me at grip, GRIP_coaching. And that's reflective of my business, because it's grip coaching. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, like I said, about the humour. I don't know if that translates, but in England, in Britain, we're all about get a grip is what we talk about.
I love that. We'll have all those links below. Lisa, it's been wonderful to chat with you. I think we're definitely going to have to do at least one other episode together, because there's so much more we could chat about, especially around confidence and developing that self-awareness and communication. So you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I hope people will reach out to you and get in touch and find you on LinkedIn and Instagram. And thank you to our audience, too, for tuning in to another episode of Bad Bosses, Great Leaders podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.